Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football, our post-spring top 25 rankings. Now, we're going to get into our summer scouting, get into a little bit deeper understanding of these teams, but post-transfer portal winding down, post-spring practice, getting into the teams that we like the most to put in our top 25. Now, again, before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Over 5,000 subscribers. Can't thank you guys enough. We are building and growing so fast. Thanks to you guys. And then even more important, let us know in the comment section. Get a little fired up. Let us know who we're sleeping on heading into 2023. Dill, I'm going to kick it off to you. Let's go through our first 5 teams. We made this together, so we had some disagreements. We'll talk about that. Georgia, Michigan, USC, Ohio State, Alabama. Dill, let's start with the national champs, the Georgia Bulldogs here.
In Georgia, like until they get knocked off that post, you can't take them off it. And I get it; they're changing quarterbacks, a lot of guys to the draft, but like right now they're just a buzzsaw, and until they prove us wrong, I don't see how you can.
Yeah, that's my only concern is the quarterback. That team around the quarterback is going to be phenomenal. Stetson Bennett was a good enough quarterback to just let his dogs go to work. They could run the football. They could get it to the athletes on the outside. Carson Beck looked phenomenal. Quite frankly, they got 3 quarterbacks that can be good starters. Carson Beck appears to be the quarterback one. He looked very nice in the spring practice. Really, that's all it is for the Jets. This is the best team. It's the most talented roster. It's the most complete roster. Talking about complete rosters, though, well, I mean, our Michigan Wolverines may be a little bit of bias here, but you talk about complete rosters with limited holes. Michigan coming in at number 2, I think that makes a lot of sense.
And they what they're bringing back from last year and what they didn't give up to the draft, I think is what kind of separates them from a lot of teams. And frankly, though, you look at that next team in USC, you could make a very similar case. I mean, they're getting back those are 2 teams that are getting back all their horses that contributed the bulk of the production last year.
And that's the most interesting storyline of these top 5 teams are Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama all need to replace their quarterbacks. And so the kind of the historic top programs are all replacing damn good quarterbacks who went in the NFL draft. Michigan and USC, on the other hand, kind of returning everybody. So you have a little bit less question marks. This USC team, I think a lot of people will say, oh, they're not physical enough. They don't have the front 7 on defense enough. I agree. I think the defense is still a concern. They did a phenomenal job in the transfer portal. We have a lot of USC listeners. We're very high on this football team. This is probably going to be the best offense we see in the country and potentially we've seen in the last 10 years. I mean, Caleb Williams, truly special quarterback. You pair him up with one of the best offensive-minded head coaches in Lincoln Riley and all the weapons on that offense. I don't see many teams just outscoring this USC team. Rounding out the top 5, we got Ohio State, Alabama. Ohio State, again, you're replacing C.J. Stroud, but outside of that, you feel really good about the talent.
And they're frankly another team that proved they're not a top 5 team because they've been top 5 for many years now, it feels like. And they've lost quarterbacks in the past and they always kind of roll it through and they always turn out fine. So they're a team again. Yeah, there's some questions for sure. They lost a lot of talent on especially up front and with their quarterback position and same with JSN. But they're still getting back some horses and their defense should be much improved, I think.
I don't even care who their quarterback. I could put up numbers in that offense. Just throw it up to Marvin Harrison Jr. We're chilling. Alabama, this is you don't make a lot of money betting against Nick Saban. That's just a fact. That being said, this is the least confident I am in an Alabama team in a while. The quarterback situation, when you have to go get Tyler Buckner as a transfer to give competition in your quarterback room, you probably know you're not in a good spot. Now, that being said, they brought in a phenomenal 2023 class. They continue to recruit well in the 2021 and 2022 classes. This team's going to be talented, but they lose a lot of guys. They did not look particularly dominant last year. But out of these top 5 teams, that quarterback room in Alabama is probably my biggest concern here.
And that's fair. And again, it's hard to knock Alabama outside preseason top 5s because you know they're going to be loaded with talent. But you're right. In the past couple of years now, you've seen defenses that just aren't Alabama defenses. They're not playing that same brand of football. And the weird part is they lost a lot of really good pros off a defense that just wasn't producing at the level it should have.
I think the best thing for Alabama here, quite frankly, is losing their coordinators because I thought that was a joke last year. That team was Bill O'Brien was so bad. Pete Golden was not good. Like you have so many NFL guys, and you trot out that bad of an offense and defense. Then
I
guys
mean,
say
you can't
bad in
give up
Alabama
50
turn.
points. You can't give up 50 points to Tennessee when you got that many draft picks on your defense. It's inexcusable. And I think you're right. I think it was time to reset, get some new blood in, or get some new life in with coordinators. And it was time. It just wasn't working with those two. Those two I thought underperformed for 2 years now. They had
6-10.
good teams.
I wanted to put LSU over Alabama. Still, you talked me off the edge, and I don't know if I totally agree. Like you asked me what team I have more faith in this year, LSU or Alabama. LSU was playing both these teams, Florida State and I cannot wait till week 1 when they
Oh
play.
my God, that's me unreal.
Potentially one of the best games of the regular season. Florida State LSU, very similar to the Michigan situation, where they're bringing back a lot of guys who could have gone to the NFL. This Florida LSU split here, you could sell me either way. I'll let you know after week 1 when those two play neutral site. But two really good teams that you feel
And
very
two teams that loaded back up in the transfer portal. I think the only question I have with these two teams is they went on some stretches last year where they played really bad. And
Florida State was just so
really
banged
bad.
up.
No, I get that. That like for sure was the case, but to lose 3 games like that against teams they did, that's kind of why it's hard for me to say put them above Alabama right now because again, you just saw too much inconsistency from. Although I do think these two teams are coming and are very much in the national title hunt right now. I just going into the preseason, I still have them. They still got to show me a little more. I guess.
I'm leaning more towards what do we see from these two teams at the end of the season. I'm feeling
They
pretty
were great. They were so good.
Getting into Pac-12 territory here. Oregon, Penn State, Washington. I love Oregon this year. I think they're another team that like a lot of hype's going around USC and rightfully so. Don't forget about that team up in Eugene. Like Bo Nix coming back, he's got weapons. I think that offensive line. My big story is I think that defense is going to be better. We talked about it after the spring game. That defense looks better. I'm worried about the tackles. You have two guys who Josh Connolly Jr. and a Johnny Cornelius who, like, if they come together and you see when Bo Nix has a good run game, when he has good protection, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, in college football. I love the Ducks. Penn State's a young team. They're very intriguing. Drew Allar, like, what can he do year 2 here? And then the Washington Huskies, another team that they're going to put up some serious points.
In Washington, what they have is they have a team coming back on offense that they're going to score a lot. The issue with them is I don't think they got a whole lot better from it. They didn't really hit the transfer portal to the extent that some of these other teams did. Like you look at what LSU and Florida State did is they had really successful years last year and then crushed in the portal. Oregon, same thing. And then you got a Penn State team that just if Drew Allar plays pretty good football, they're going to be a problem because their offensive line's coming alive. It's really good now. Defense was young.
We said it about Penn State last year when we were doing our summer scouting. This team's going to be good in 2023 and 2024. Like you have Singleton, Drew Allar, they've recruited very, very well in the last couple classes. You're getting to that point where those young recruits are going to kind of be difference makers now. Like this Penn State team for this year and next year, like keep your eye on this program because Michigan, Ohio State have been kind of the tops of the Big Ten. I think Penn State's going to wake a lot of teams up. Notre Dame coming in at 11. Texas, Clemson, OU, Oregon State, Notre Dame. Sam Hartman looked phenomenal in the spring game. You guys know how I feel about Sam Hartman. Love him. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. That always seems like Notre Dame's a quarterback away. So if they hit on Sam Hartman, this is a very dangerous team.
I mean, that's the thing. They were a really good team last year, and the quarterback play was so bad. I think it made them look much worse than they were. I think they were very much in it with not anyone in the country for sure. They're not there yet, but they were a 10 win team. It's for sure to me. And obviously the quarterback play is weak, but Sam Hartman's a guy who, again, he's coming from Wake Forest, so he doesn't get the love he probably deserves, but he's gonna revamp that offense for sure.
Texas is the team I want to talk about the most. You talk about sleeping giant of a program. I wanted to put them in the top 10. It's just after what you've seen, like you can't really in good mind put them in the top 10. This is a team that could be a top 5 team in the country though.
And that's the thing. Like they're so loaded. I mean, frankly, everywhere. That defense you saw how
That's
much
the big
better they
thing.
were playing like last year than at
Yes.
any time under Tom Herman. I mean, you got a guy like Jalen Ford. He is so good. I thought that secondary played really much
It's the
better than I think they get.
physicality. Like that Texas defense was just different from a physicality standpoint than we've seen in previous teams. And that team could have won the Big 12 if that offense just was more consistent. But you had way too many games last year where Quinn Ewers looked lost. Now, from what you're hearing in spring practice, from what you saw in the spring game, Quinn Ewers looks like it's coming together. That offense, JT Sanders, Jordan Whittington, I named Xavier Worthy third. That tells you how good the pass catchers are for Texas. AD Mitchell, like this offense, you talk about one of the top offenses in the country. It could be Texas. If that defense continues to play the way they did last year, that's probably my pick to win the Big 12. And again, the Big 12 is just deep. There's a lot of good teams. It's really hard to play in the Big 12 because there's a lot of good teams. If this Texas team can be consistent week in, week out, we're
And
talking
that's the thing. The Big 12 is hard to predict because they have a lot of
so
good
many good
teams, but
teams.
they don't have that hammer. They don't have that Georgia, Bama. They don't have that Michigan, Ohio State where there's teams that have kind of separated. Even last year, TCU did not separate themselves at all. They were
No,
razor tight with Texas and Kansas State and really
Baylor, like all these teams,
all the
Kansas.
other Big 12 teams. They're all right around each other.
Not even Kansas is a cakewalk anymore in the Big 12. Like this Big
No.
12 is really, really good. Clemson, K. Klubnik, new offensive coordinator. The defense is still going to be good. They got some really, really good backers, a very good front seven. We're high on that secondary. I think the big story of that is K. Klubnik, new offensive coordinator. Can we get some life out of that Clemson offense? And then the Oklahoma Sooners. Like I talk about another sleeping giant. This Oklahoma offense was very, very good last year. Well, I shouldn't say very good. I think they'll be good. That defense was their weak point. We talked about it after the spring game. This Oklahoma defense looks like the Brent Venables defense that we thought we'd see last year. You saw some growing pains. I think this Oklahoma team could surprise some teams. And then Oregon
that's
State.
another team. You talk about a team that really tried to get better in the offseason. Oklahoma, like with those transfers they got, and you saw in the spring game a much more physical looking team. And when you bring guys like Reggie Pearson and Deshaun McCullough, those are those guys were guys who flew around and hammered teams.
Yeah.
And that's what Venables needs. And I thought their front seven looked a lot better. They did a lot, I thought, compared to a lot of teams in terms of revamping what they were doing. And there was already the base of talent. And to get Dylan Gabriel back, I'm kind of with you. I think they're going to be better than people think.
Oregon State, the least sexy team in college football. And I kind of pride myself in knowing a decent amount of college football. I don't know if I could name you 15 players on this Oregon State roster. I don't even know if I can name you 12 or 10. That being said, you watched that Oregon State team last year. They run the ball at a high level. They play extremely good defense. And that's a brand of football that that gives a lot of teams in the Pac-12 some fits. You add DJU, who I think we all agree is very, very talented. A change of scenery with Coach Smith. I mean, if DJU wakes up and he's way more talented than any quarterback they had playing at Oregon State last year. Like this team is, I know everyone hates it. It's not a sexy pick. This is
nobody wants to play Oregon State. They're just like a throwback. You saw like Florida did not want a piece of them in that bowl game.
They did not.
Or I don't think Oregon had a fun time playing them in that game at the end of the year. They're just a heavy physical team that kind of doesn't, I don't want to say bores you to sleep, but like they play a style of game just no one wants to deal with. And
it's really so cool in the Pac-12 because you have USC and Washington. They're going to light it up. It's going to be a track race. And you have Oregon State and Utah. We're going to play 12 personnel. You could talk, you kind of piggyback here. I like Utah. Cam Rising's healthy, obviously looking at, and quite frankly, you could interchange Utah and Oregon State. I think they're very similar teams. But again, two teams that they're not sexy, but they win a lot of football games. Team that is sexy, though, UNC, Drake May. This UNC defense was we bet on UNC a lot last year, and it was
a grind.
It was grind every game. Every game it was a grind because that defense could not stop a nosebleed. But when you have one of the second best quarterback in the country, like you're gonna be a good team.
And that's the thing. They're a team I struggle with because they lost so much on defense from a team that was already
they all transferred out. Like, how is this defense going to be good at all?
And they're losing Longo. I don't know. It was a bad offseason for UNC for sure. The only bright spot, and it can shine through all the other negativity, is Drake May's back. Drake May's
in college football, that's kind of the name of the game. Like you
Yeah.
see star quarterbacks carry teams to good seasons. You saw that last year with UNC. UNC is a very hard team to keep out of your top 20 because they have such a good quarterback. Now, I know the Tennessee fans are going to be pissed. And as a Michigan guy, I'm not. I saw the bowl game and we got burned. We loved Clemson in that bowl game. We had Joe Milton start. I need to see more from Joe Milton.
And that's the thing, Joe. I think that's frankly the whole thing with Tennessee is they're right. Like they had a really great year last year for sure. But at this point, you kind of need to see a second before you're willing to kind of put them in that perennial top 10 kind of range because they're another team that's lost a lot of players, lost a lot up front. Darnell Wright obviously leaving, lost a lot of talent at the wideout spot.
Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Jeremy
lost
Banks,
a lot of
Byron
players
Young.
on defense. You just have a lot of turnover, and frankly, Heupel hasn't been there to recruit the way he's recruiting long enough, and they've lost transfers a few times as the coaches have turned over. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure Joe Milton is Hendon Hooker either, so it's hard for me to.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that. And we'll spend some time on Tennessee here because it's got my brain in a pretzel. Like I have so much faith in Josh Heupel. I just don't have that much faith in Joe Milton. I think,
but it's tough because like that bowl game makes you think.
Yeah, he made me look like an idiot
in that game.
He made me look like an idiot, and I saw on Twitter Joe Milton getting comped to Anthony Richardson. Like Joe Milton's not like they both have rocket arms. Joe Milton has the strongest arm in college football right now. I don't think anyone would argue that.
He doesn't move like it.
He's not to move. And I just worry about Hendon Hooker was so consistent. Like that ball, he did not miss throws, especially the deep throws. Joe Milton, like as much as he makes those flash throws that the NFL is going to love, the consistency's not there. And that Tennessee offense.
Well, it wasn't there at Michigan, but in fairness, that was like Michigan with offenses that just frankly couldn't get it rolling. Like obviously under Josh Gaddis, and you never felt like it got going at Michigan on the offensive side of the ball. It's you get him with a Heupel.
And what'd you see Hendon Hooker do? He was a borderline starter at Virginia Tech, comes to Tennessee, almost wins a Heisman.
That's the thing. Hooker, like you would have thought he wasn't a second round pick, a third round pick, whatever he went at Virginia Tech, and he transformed himself. Credit to him. It's like if Joe Milton can do the same thing, and why doubt Josh Heupel now? They'll be up there again. They'll just be a team. They'll be like one of those teams that are right up there with the Clemson, Texas.
I'm very, very excited to see what this Tennessee team looks like. And that's kind of going to show you if they can kind of cement themselves as one of those top teams. Yeah, can you do it back to back years? Wisco coming in next. This is a team that we're high on. I love Luke Fickell's hire. I love the Luke Fickell hire. I even like more the Phil Longo hire. Then you bring in a guy like Tanner Mordecai, who's run the air raid system. You still have Braylon Allen. You still have a phenomenal offensive line. You still have very good defense. You add some weapons in the transfer portal. Like this, you talk about my favorite team to win the Big Ten West. It's the Badgers.
This team was so good. It's just Graham Mertz really struggled during his time at Wisconsin, and frankly, Paul Chryst was way too cemented to his idea of play 1950s football, and you open it up, you just don't know. You're never going to break through doing what Paul Chryst is doing. So they made the move they had to, but they kept the talent he had, the developed defense and all that stuff that you loved from Wisconsin and the physicality. But you add that in the wrinkle of like a modern offense with a coach who knows what he's doing, running that scheme.
That was awesome. He's
could
such
be a problem.
And I think one of the things I think everyone's talking about air raid. You're going to see lighter boxes because you can actually throw the football like you couldn't with Graham Mertz. Braylon Allen's going to be a dog. He's going to average 6 yards per carry plus because it's like he was averaging 5-something yards per carry against 8-man boxes every run. Now he's going to get a little bit more space to work in. He's, in my mind, probably the best running back in the country. This Wisconsin team's dangerous. And then this is another team we're a little lower on. Like TCU, hard to not throw them in your top 25. I kind of compare them a little bit to the Michigan State team from 2021, and then they go into 2022. It just seemed like another team that kind of made us look stupid at times where it's like, can they just keep winning football games? And they kept winning football games. That being said, they lose a lot. You lose Max Duggan, who's kind of like the hero, Quentin Johnson, Kendre Miller. You lose a lot of guys up front as well. They lost a lot of guys to the NFL.
Yeah, I think they were right up there with anyone.
They were right behind Michigan. Now, that being said, that was a team that if you were to power rank and do the nerd numbers, they were probably maybe the 18th, 16th, 15th best team in the country, but they kept winning football games, so you had to put them in the college football playoff. I don't know if they're going to be that good.
And I also like they hadn't been recruiting in the way you kind of needed to. And again, who knows? They might be developing like people probably are saying the same thing about Michigan last year, and they obviously proved a lot of people wrong. TCU might do it, but it's hard to rationalize putting them right up there with some of these really talented teams just because you had a lot of unfamiliar faces. You lost the guys who kind of made that team tick, like the Max Dugans and big key contributors. So I think right now you got to leave them outside that top 15. But man, Sonny Dykes though, he might be a magician too. So who knows?
Tulane coming in, had to throw in a group of 5 team. I think Michael Pratt's phenomenal quarterback. Like they beat USC in a bowl game, and USC played a lot of their dogs. Like this Tulane team is legit. They're a very good team. Kansas State coming in next. Again, that's another one of those teams that they're not necessarily the most sexy team. Can't name that many players, but they play really, really good football. Let's talk a little Texas A&M. I'm gonna kick that one to you because that was your team here.
It's tough. I mean, they're still loaded, and that defense should be really good, especially that front seven. They're loaded up there, and got a couple nice transfers. You just got to have quarterback play.
Like, I think the story is I don't even know if it's the quarterback play as much as it's just like, holy smokes, can we get an offense that's not run by Jimbo Fisher? And I really do think if Jimbo Fisher's like, hey, Bobby, run the offense, I'll focus on just managing this roster, managing this program. Like, I think it's less to do with the personnel, and I think it had a lot more to do with Jimbo Fisher's offense.
That'll be the test. If they really pop off this year, like, watch out in the future because they can recruit, they have the support. And Jimbo Fisher, you say what you will about him and anything else, the guy knows how to get talent on the field.
All right, closing in our top 25 here. Texas Tech, Tyler Shuck coming back at quarterback, Coach McGuire. That was another sneaky team. Like, you go back and look at some power rankings, you go back and look at some results. Texas Tech won a lot of big football games. Beat Texas. Like, they were a very competitive team in the Big 12. And you talk about where to stack these teams, Texas Tech is right up there in terms of like a dark horse to win the Big 12. I think you can't count them out. And then Ole Miss. Like, Lane Kiffin's going to put up a lot of points. I love the quarterback room. Like, I think Spencer Sanders is going to be the starter. But whoever does start is going to be a really good quarterback surrounded by a really good some offensive weapons. You have one of the best running backs in Quishon Judkins. They retooled in the portal. Like, it's a solid football team.
Yeah, and again, this is kind of where they belong. I don't think they're a legitimate threat to win the SEC right now yet. I just don't see the defense being up to snuff exactly to winning that. And I think their offense is going to be really good, but I just don't see it as the high power. Or just like them versus LSU and Bama and Georgia, I don't see them quite there yet. But you're right; they're gonna score a lot of points and hence be a really hard team to beat. It's what they've been for a while.
All right, a few of our dark horses that we just wanted to touch on, but didn't really squeak the top 25. Baylor's in there. We got burned bad. This was a team that I think we had top 15, top 10 grade on heading into the season.
They were a sneaky team. They were probably better than their record indicated too. Like, they lost some real gut-wrenching games, and
we lost a
Texas game. And I mean, Dave Rand is just a guy. You lose who he loses. He's a guy who puts good teams on the field. They play really good defense. They play really sound football.
Dave Rand is not a personnel guy. He's a scheme guy. Like, I think you could trot out a bunch of me's and you could win some games. Dave Rand. That's maybe generous to math. South Carolina, that's a team that I have some question marks. Like, that offensive line just needs to get better. Like, you even saw in the spring game, like, it's just it continues to be a question mark. You lose some guys in the portal, but you do have Spencer Rattler coming back, Juice Wells, and Shane Beamer special teams. Like, they're going to win some football games. The Iowa Hawkeyes, I'll kick it to you on the Iowa Hawkeyes. A little revamped. You still have Ferentz calling the offense, so that's not great.
That's the fun. I mean, I know, like, they're saying it's going to be a different offense, and Cade McNamara is coming from Michigan. I don't see how Brian Ferentz is still there. That is mind-boggling. Frankly, I'm not sure it's not totally time for just a what Wisconsin did,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
shakeup, because
agreed.
it's really stale in Iowa. But again, they did get some good transfers. They took two really good Michigan players. I think Caleb Brown, which one is it? The Ohio State kids
Oh
is
yeah, Caleb
visiting.
Brown's on campus. I don't
So
know why.
Caleb Brown's visiting, and then I know that's what their kind of mantra is. It's not going to be your like past Iowa, but I don't know.
I do think Cade
It's still the
McNamara is
same.
a phenomenal quarterback to run this offense. Like Spencer Petras just really couldn't make the throws. Cade McNamara is going to be able to make the throws. You're not going to ask him to go sling the ball all around. He doesn't really have that arm. I don't think
They're
he's
not
that
even
guy.
like dominating up front anymore. It's like they're not putting pros in. I mean, since Linderbaum, they're not really putting pros in the.
But
I
the
don't know.
team's been solid.
I just think it's ready to. I think they need a shakeup. I think
We'll
again
see.
they're always really solid, so that's why they're a dark horse to be a top 25 team. But I think it's time for them to do what
You
Wisconsin
might
did.
see. I wonder if you see like a little Kirk Ferentz on the hot seat if it gets, you know what I mean? If there's just like no progress being made at a
Yeah,
certain point, it's like, all right, do we, or is like the AD and just say, hey, we're good going 8-5. Like, we'll take it. We'll take it. So
might
we'll
be.
see. Last team, it's hard to not talk about. Kate, and this we were talking about this like this. It's a really top heavy. Like, I felt really good about maybe the top 15, maybe Tennessee, Utah as well, and that is like some teams that you're just like, TCU, Kansas State, A&M could be good. The Arkansas Razorbacks could be a very good team. Like KJ Jefferson is a very good college quarterback. He's big. He's got a good arm. I think they have one of the best running backs in Rocket Sanders. You know Sam Pittman's going to have that offensive line cooking. That Arkansas team was really bad because of the injuries in the secondary. I think they got that right. This team could be a top 25 team if that defense, especially the secondary, comes together a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They were in it with teams last year that like made you think they were definitely kind of in that range. But you're right, the secondary is just so depleted, and
They
you
had
just
guys
get
who were
the
like walk-ons, and like you just can't have that in the SEC when you're going up against some just elite wide receivers, some elite athletes. You can't have guys who aren't ready on the back end, giving up way too many explosive plays. But again, I love the offense. I love the players the offense is built around, like a big running quarterback in KJ Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, who I legitimately think will be a top 50, top 75 pick in the 2024 NFL draft. You know you're going to have a good offensive line. Like this team, they're going to be able to put up points. And I really do think they saw, okay, our weakness is a secondary. You address it in the transfer report a little bit. I think this team could be dangerous in 2023. Now, to close it out, I do just want to ask you guys, drop the teams that we're sleeping on. I know the Florida Gator fans might be upset, but just hard to put a team like that with a lack of quarterback. Let us know in the comment section who we're sleeping on. Again, appreciate all the support you guys have shown. This is such a fun time of year to look forward to the 2023 season. The fellas can't wait. We appreciate you guys rocking with us, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.